if I was to answer it in one word, to try to create mastery of the elevator pitch, and I have 10 seconds to say what dictates someone who's really good in the sport of fitness, not absolutely, but relatively, for themselves, I would say that the more resilient individual is the more fit individual. So the number one thing to recognize, first of all, is we have our own, intricate story and our own fingerprint, and we have to be able to work really well with what we've been given. And I've thought about this for a really long period of time. One of the real highlight things that stick out to me is recovery. But the main two we're talking about is the ability to recover between a training session to the next training session, and also from one intense contraction to the next contraction sessions. But you have to remember that the more you dig in at a really deep level to each of those sessions pulls you away from your recovery into the next session. So it's not really talked about quite a bit because intensity is slapped on top of so much within the competition in the sport of fitness. But you have to recognize that within someone's training age, over time, the more and more that they dig deep and deep into that hole, let's call it the intensity hole, the longer it takes for them to recover from that. Having the approach that every session that you do should be a quality session, and you intricately pick your times where there has to be intensity involved in it, where you go beyond your capabilities over time. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of the intersection between challenge and capability, in which you're going to get the greatest growth or the best refinement even within your skills. So you need to be thinking about that. How do I recover between session to session? And instead of saying, well, what can I do in between my sessions, whether it be ice bathing and fuel, whatever the case may be, you could say, well, maybe you just don't go as hard per session. And I know that sometimes falls on deaf ears for people who are slapped with intensity, but you have to fall in love with the training process and understand that just training unto itself at certain levels of variation in volume and intensity is going to get you to, bigger pieces over time. In terms of contraction to contraction, this is one of the areas that I thought or had been super interested in for a period of time, especially coming from called traditional strength conditioning field over into a sport of fitness model with chaos and a black box theory, involved in terms of what goes in to produce results over a period of time. I looked at a lot of things on the inside and said there are some pieces to that are quite different than what we've learned in science, or also what we know to be true within physiology. And that really is that the highest performing people within the sport of fitness, from contraction to contraction, do something inside that will continue to be investigated over time, but they do something inside that allows them to recover faster than the next person in absolute numbers before the next contraction. So simple tests that we've employed over a period of time would be taking someone's true maximum of a specific lift, let's say it's a snatch or a clean 1RM, and then making sure, first of all, that that's a true max, and then getting them to take a period of time recovery from that, let's say 8 to 10 minutes, and then they do a high percentage of that 1RM, and they have to do as many reps as possible in an 8-minute period of format. So what we see from that is, it's really nice insight. It's not answers, but it's a super insight into one of the things that allows people to recognize this fact that of the amount of intensity that goes into each contraction and how good the aerobic system is at helping people recover from each of those contractions. So let's put it in a couple different ways. You have 4 females across the board who all clean 250 pounds, okay? And they all have the same training age, same height, weight. Let's just try to make all things being equal. And they all scored 250 on the single clean. So some people can look at that and say, holy crap, that's strong. That certainly sets you up well for the sport of fitness. Then we test all of them, though, for an 8-minute AMRAP at 90% of that 1RM. And we get, let's say 2 of the females that score 35 plus rest and 2 of the females that score under 10 reps. Now, if you haven't tested this before, you would say that's blasphemy or have bats in the belfry. But if you actually go through it, you'll quickly understand that there are different things that are going on inside people underneath their maximum that really dictates recovery between contraction to contraction. So there's something going on every time they do the intense contraction, and what they learn how to do, whether it be just being a great athlete, something internal that understands how to do the right kind of intensity of the contraction at the right time. There's also aerobic components, so the amount of volume that people have built up and their amount of their, I call it the quality of their aerobic system, and what's happening at the cell level, that certainly helps them recover between each of those intense contractions effectively. Now, what can we do to improve that? Well, you just heard me. You certainly can improve your aerobic potential without getting weaker, of course. And you can work on basically learning how to relax with each of those contractions that you do. Now I know that kind of sounds crazy, but the more intensity that you apply with intent to each of those submaximal contractions, it's going to result in you pushing fatigue onto yourself a whole lot quicker. So what those good athletes learn how to do is to basically dampen that system to recover faster between contractions. So it's something that you can think about when you're doing those submaximal efforts. So two things: how do I recover between session to session more effectively by really maybe dropping the intensity that goes into every session and building up a period of time and then timing it perfectly? And then how do I recover faster between contraction to contraction? And the way you can practice that is those things based upon improving your aerobic system, but also just relaxing a little bit each time you do some of those contractions and practicing it without being unsafe, obviously. And what I mean by that is basically these two things of recovery between session to session and contraction to contraction is faster. It's not about the work. I mean, everyone can do a specific piece of work. Anyone can do a piece of work. But it's how fast people recover from pieces of work that dictates success over a period of time, as well as how they pace that piece of work so they don't have to dig too deep into the system. So again, of course, they can recover faster. Now, the way that people do that emotionally is that through this high level of resilience, which I see come about with a very low level of perception. So that may be seen or sounds like in some ways of having a low intellectual, setting, but it's actually not. Intellect is measured in multiple different ways, but these people in the sport of fitness that are very good, they actually have to go to the ends of the continuum physically, and they can't pull aside emotion and spirit at the same time in order to get to that massive physical end and physical continue. You can ask anyone who's been in it for a long period of time, what breaks down? Their body does. But then what builds up over a period of time? Their mind and their spirit does when they truly get into mastery of sport. So they have to go to that far end of the continuum in a physical manifestation. And when they get away from that and they start thinking more, they become less resilient and less effective. So I just gave you the answer as to what is one of the major separators that we could work on if you wanted to go from someone that's okay to being a whole lot better. You got to think less and you have to do more. So I hope that makes sense. Basically, if you're having very low perception, you're going to have a super high resilience and recover between pieces more effectively. So I hope some of those things can help you on your way for what I think is dictating the differences or the changes, correlates really, between a really high performer and those who are trying to climb the ladder up to that.